All right, video 6. So at the end of video 5, you created this table that we are going to use so that we can apply the simple interest formula to finding some of the other unknown variables. And so you should have copied this information in. Also, taking a look here at interest equals PRT, there's our simple interest formula. And then we rearranged it in the first example by dividing both sides by RT there so that we could isolate P, so that P would equal I divided by RT. And in a similar fashion went through so that we could solve for R and T. And so then we've created this table and question marks and some shading so that we know which unknowns we are looking for. And the next step then, you should have also gone through and calculated the amount of time in years. So 120 days. We'll be looking to convert that to years. So 120 days divided by 365 days will tell us the fraction of a year. So equals 120 divided by 365. There we go. And in a similar fashion here, 60 days divided by 365. And there's also a few more of those for 60 days. So what we could do, save some time, is just copy that and paste it into those 60-day time frames. And 90 days equals 90 divided by 365. And we could copy that one. And then we don't need that many decimal places, so I'm going to hold down the Control key and select and reduce the decimal places there. There we go, 2 decimal places. That'll work fine for what we're doing here. We can do that. And so those are the numbers that you should have had at the conclusion of video 5. So if you don't, make sure you check that and get that put together, and then we will move on and see if we can find some missing values. Well, let's start with finding the principal when the other 3 values are known. So the first thing to do is take a look at our formula that we've changed, rearranged so that we could solve for P. So P is going to be interest divided by R times T. Equal sign. So interest in the numerator divided by, now what we have to make sure that we do is use our parentheses. As you have learned in Mr. Quinn's algebra class, you must control the order of operations. And so before this division occurs, we want to make sure that the multiplication occurs. Because remember, it's interest divided by the product of R times T. So it's not interest divided by R, interest divided by T. It's interest divided by the product of R times T. So if we use these parentheses, it will force that multiplication to occur before the division occurs. So we'll select R times T and enclose that, parentheses. And it looks like that should be $1,916.25. Oh, the other thing that you probably did before, at the end of video 5, I think I asked you to go ahead and to make sure you have these formatted the way we want. Go and make those there. I'm not going to format the question marks yet. And in fact, let's go ahead and increase the decimal place by 1 there. And I'll make those dollars too. There we go. All right, so that's how you do the principal. So before we go any further, go ahead and complete line 4 to find principal and line number 8. So you can go ahead and practice that. So go ahead and calculate the principal and then come on back and we'll talk about looking for rate. Let's take a look at calculating for the rate when we have the other 3 variables available to us here. And we'll go to line 3. And look at our formula. R equals interest divided by P times T, or interest divided by the product of P times T. So it's going to be done in a very similar fashion. Equal sign. Interest divided by, once again, got to enclose that calculation in parentheses, P times T. Now, our formatting is clearly not what we want. So let's go in first and make it a number and see what we got. So 0.18. So it's looking like once we convert that, we should have an answer of 18%. And there it is. And we'll increase that by 1 place, 18.3%. So now you can go ahead and finish line 5, find the rate of interest there, and then also line 10. And then we'll come back and look at our last one, and that is calculating for time. And our last one, calculating for time. T equals I divided by PR. Well, let's go through this, and we'll first calculate time in terms of a year, and then we'll convert that time to days so that we can see how that would work out. So here we go. Equal sign. Interest divided by P times R. Now let's go ahead and check mark that and see what our answer is. Well, we don't want it in dollar format. Let's just go ahead and put it in number format. 0.17. So 0.17 years. Let's see if we can take it a step further, though, and actually find out how many days that would be. Just kind of go the other way from what we have been doing. So I'm going to double-click here. Now, remember, it's 0.17 years, so 365 days in a year. So if we take and multiply this decimal times 365, then that should tell us about how many days. And then we can do some rounding so that the answer makes some sense. We want to put it in whole days. So double-click. And there's our formula. And so what we can do is, because we want to multiply this entire operation by 365, what we can do is go ahead and put in another set of parentheses and enclose that. So I'm going to put it at the beginning and then another one at the end. It's very important that anytime we have a parenthesis, there has to be a pair of these parentheses. And notice that Excel puts them in color. It makes it easy to check to make sure you've enclosed the order of operations appropriately. So there's the red pair, and then we have this black pair. And then we can come in and multiply that operation by 365 days. And that should tell us how many days there are in this particular problem for line 2. 60.83 days. And so what we could do then is round that up because we want to have a whole number of days. So it's going to be about, it's closer to 1 than it is closer to 60, 61. So let's decrease those decimals, and there it is. 61 days. Right there. So that's how you do it when we're trying to calculate for time. So go ahead now and you can complete lines 6, 7, and 9. And that should be it for this particular video 6 in how to calculate missing values using the simple interest formula and rearranging to find for the particular unknown that we want to solve for. And so once you've finished that, go ahead and compare your values to mine and see if there's any issues, ask any questions, and then have me come around and take a look at your formulas. So this concludes video 6, applying the simple interest formula.